Hey people, if you didn't know yet, YouTube has murdered the health ranger. He had one of the best channels on YouTube, but he was doing the three things that you can't do. You can't cut into their money. And if you notice, most of your commercials on TV, most of your commercials on Facebook are somebody's trying to sell you a drug. The drug company's been running this world for a long time. He had too many followers and he was dabbling in politics and fixing to start a religious war, fixing to start a Christian uprising. So whatever you think about the Bible, the facts about it is that people have been fighting to keep it for a long time, and people have been warring to get rid of it. And mostly the churches been burning. The churches and governments have been burning the Bible for a long time. And your English-speaking ancestors, before the King James English version was ever written, they could read this book. That's why they were fighting. It's not because they couldn't read it. They knew what it said. They rewrote this King James so you wouldn't try to understand what it says. But I didn't want to tell you what it says. I want to teach people how to read this. People were getting too smart and governments were losing control. They don't want a smart population. They didn't create schools to smarten you up. They created schools to dumb your children down so they wouldn't have a problem on their hands. So I'll tell you a little story here. About 5 years ago, I had a little young girlfriend, and she went to the hospital and called me, told me she was real ill. So I went up there, and they were running tests and taking blood, and about $15,000 later, and 2 hours later, the doctor comes in and says there's nothing wrong with her. I said, did you look in her ears? You know, when I was a kid, I would go to the doctor. He would look in my ears. He would look in my mouth. He would look in my eyes. I didn't have to say nothing. He knew what was wrong with me. And for about $35, he'd cure me. Now, about $15,000 later, he comes in. He says there's nothing wrong with her. I said, man, look at her. Her eyes are yellow. Her tongue's yellow. He looks at me. He says, oh, she's jaundiced. I said, no shit. So how much is that going to cost me? So the next day, they took her gallbladder out. And that probably wasn't even the problem. So I took her to Florida for a week and put her out in the sun and got her eating healthy. And she lost that yellow tint in about 3 days. So I'll leave the link at the end where I went over this better in another movie. But the whole purpose of the Bible is in the first line, and it says, Bereshit bara Elohim. In the beginning, learn to cook up the alcohol and drugs. That's how the kings held their rule. Before all the law, it was Anheuser-Busch that ruled the world. You know, whoever had the beer had the army. If you didn't have no beer, you didn't have no army with you. This was all written, coded in alchemy, and it wasn't as coded as tight as it is now. Now it's just a total crap story. But this ancient writing was designed to make the reader smarter. It was designed to make them think. It talked about many subjects, but it's mainly about drugs and alcohol and how the stars and the planets and the moon affects the way people think. It's about astrology, and they knew all about this. And when the people got the book and they knew how to read it, the kings lost control. And they fought for a while trying to get the books back. They couldn't get all the books, so they wrote an easier book. The war never stopped until they got everybody too dumb to read this. Then your ancestors' English language came from this language. This is closer to English than any other language. Hebrew's a crock. People go to school for 30 years so they can read the Bible, and they don't learn how to read it. They can't open up a page and read it. If they don't see what number it is, they can't write this language to each other because they memorized the Bible in them 30 years. They don't have a clue. The story here actually explains to the king how to create the new Lord every so often, every 1,000 years when they start having problems, to get everybody back in line. And it's a great system, and the way they got it now, there's no Christian ever going to think about a different interpretation, and anybody that doesn't believe, they're not going to waste their time trying to read this. They think it's a crock anyway. So they got a great system to keep control for thousands of years. There's no telling how long it's been going on. We might have been here millions of years going through this same thing. So I got to keep this short. Every time I make a movie, my video chip goes out just after I get it loaded. I got to pull my computer apart and foil it up and bake it for 10 minutes and let it cool and put it back together so I can do my reading, because that's all I do is I read ancient writings on the computer all day. It's about wore out. So this is a short one. I'll get y'all something up soon, teach you some more about reading, and God is love.